Tonight, a group of Scarborough tenants is worried they'll be left out in the cold with their building set to be demolished.
Along with all the other tenants here, we have absolutely no idea where we're going to be housed.
They want assurance from the city that they will be looked after before council meets next week for final approval. Plus, an extreme cold warning is in effect for the city. A blast of Arctic air bringing dangerously cold temperatures tonight through tomorrow. Plus,
I think anytime the world is inspired by art and reacting to art, we're in a better place.
Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, the exhibit, has arrived in Toronto for the very first time, giving people a chance to immerse themselves in the artistic masterpiece. We get a preview. Good evening. I'm Kelda Yoon. Tenants of a Scarborough mid-rise are worried they will have nowhere to live when their 70-year-old building is demolished in a year or so. Now, the city and the developer are both reassuring the tenants that they will be looked after. But as Angelina King reports, residents want those promises in writing before council gives final approval.
I have a hard time sleeping about this.
For more than 20 years, Monica Little has called this building home, a mid-rise apartment in Scarborough with 33 units. Little is a pensioner in her 70s and assumed she'd be living here much longer, but now?
Now it's completely different and it's very scary.
In 2020, the building was sold to a developer. Last week, Scarborough Community Council approved its demolition permit. It still needs final approval from City Council, which meets next week, but the time frame is worrying tenant advocate Anna Dewar-Gully. The residents have rights, but they want the city to put that in writing before council approves the demolition.
Have left us kind of scratching our heads trying to understand how exactly they're protected and what documents and by whom.
Once the new building is complete, the current tenants have the right to move back into a new and upgraded unit. For 10 years, it'll cost what they're paying now. According to the city and Altry Developments, they're also entitled to access to a leasing agent to help find them a new place, a moving allowance, a rent gap payment so they don't pay more rent while they're displaced, and compensation of 3 months' rent or more if they're considered special needs. But tenants want all of that on the books.
We have no security from the city. We don't have anything in writing.
The city says a letter is being sent to tenants and says that staff have recommended a legal agreement with all the tenants' rights be signed before issuing the demolition permit and before tenants get their eviction notice.
We're looking minimum a year or more before demolition will be looked at. There'll be plenty of time to sit down with all the residents.
But tenants still have questions, like where they'll be living and how long it'll be until they can come back home.
We don't have a clue as to what we're going to be doing. I mean, our whole future is a fog. Nothing is concrete to us.
Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Hi, it's Edward with City Toronto Bylaw Enforcement. I'm just checking if you have heat.
Now, heat is back on for some tenants of an apartment building near Yonge and St. Clair. They've been bundling up in the cold for a week with temperatures hovering close to 10 degrees Celsius in their units. Now, yesterday, heat turned back on for the west side of the building and the common areas, but it is still in short supply for the east side of the building. The city issued 2 notices of violation and 2 property standards orders and is investigating the situation. Briar Lane Rental Property manages the apartment. The city is requesting they offer alternative accommodations until the situation is resolved. A portion of a busy downtown street was shut down tonight because of a water main break. It happened on Queen Street West near Walnut Avenue. The police restricted traffic in the area as they worked to contain the water spilling onto the road. Residents from 6 buildings were evacuated, and the city is working to provide them with temporary shelter. It's not clear how long the cleanup will take. Now, salt trucks were brought in to help deal with the ice given the plunging temperatures. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now with a first check on that forecast. And Colette, yeah, the temperature's really plummeting tonight.
Yeah, they really are, and this is why we need the extreme cold warning that was issued by Environment Canada and that we're in, because it's dangerous when temperatures get this cold. We're looking at wind chill values around -30. So exposed skin, even short periods of time outside, you can risk hypothermia and also frostbite. So really taking caution here, and it's not just tonight, it's going to be Friday night as well. And in between, Friday's not that much warmer. Getting to that board in one moment. Of course, we had a wide area in the snow squall warnings earlier. Now that's a little more limited behind the front. We're looking at the areas that will really be seeing that snow. It's highly localized, but even at times some of those flurries can make their way down to the north shore of Lake Ontario or even towards the north shore of Lake Erie there. But heavier amounts in those particular areas around Georgian Bay and Lake Huron where you get into those. And tonight, -19, there it is, feeling like -30, but even tomorrow, -15. We will have a good dose of sunshine, but it is going to feel like -25 then, Kelda.
Wow. All right. Thanks so much, Colette. Toronto police have seized hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of fake gift cards in a massive retail fraud bust.
A search warrant was executed at a business, and a number of items were seized by police related to the gift card scam. A number of gift cards totaling approximately $500,000 in street value. And in addition to that, a number of tools and machines that are used to tamper, fabricate, and produce these gift cards.
Officers arrested 3 Richmond Hill residents in the bust on January 25th and recovered hundreds of fraudulent cards. Police say the scammers would tamper with the barcodes of existing cards or make new ones. Then, when unsuspecting customers loaded money onto those cards, the cash would go directly back to the fraudsters. 2 of the suspects are now facing charges of fraud over $5,000, while all 3 have been charged with possession of proceeds obtained by a crime. As we mentioned on our show yesterday, car thefts are on the rise in Brampton. Now, to combat that, the city is now launching a pilot project that aims to help car owners protect themselves from thieves with the use of some simple technology. Ali Chiasson has the details.
My mother-in-law had pulled into the driveway and came into the house and asked where I was. I said, I'm here. She says, well, where's your car? I said, it's in the driveway. She said, no, it's not. And I said, that's not a funny joke. And I went out to see her car parked in my spot.
Brampton City Councillor Dennis Keenan's car was stolen last weekend from his driveway. It was recovered later that night because police were able to track Keenan's iPad that was in it. But it goes to show how rampant car theft is.
And I'm no different than anyone else that lives in our community. I'm targeted the same way.
Let's look at the statistics. 3 years ago, 3,062 cars were stolen in Peel Region. In 2022, 6,042 cars were stolen. That means auto theft is up by 97% in Peel.
On a local level, we're doing our part.
Yesterday, Brampton City Council approved a pilot project to hand out Faraday cases to people who live in the worst hit areas. Faraday technology acts like a frequency shield for electronics, making it impossible for criminals to copy key fobs.
A $6 item can prevent a $60,000 car being stolen in 60 seconds.
Admittedly, a Band-Aid solution, the mayor says. Meanwhile, police are in an endless game of whack-a-mole, trying to crack down on car thefts.
We have seen in the last several years, annually, the number of stolen autos recovered here in Peel Region increasing. The number of people we're charging is also increasing.
And the solution will require coordination across many sectors, from the Canadian Border Service Agency inspecting the ports to car makers themselves.
Without having the consumers, the manufacturers, our partners at the federal and provincial level come alongside of us as chiefs right across all the urban centers in Ontario, we will not resolve this.
The more analog way of protecting your vehicle is with a steering wheel lock, but if you want one of those Faraday cases, there's plenty of videos online about how you can make one yourself.
Now I want to show how wrapping the car key in aluminum foil does a fantastic job.
Now we can't unlock it.
It works!
If you live in Brampton, you might get your Faraday pouch for free courtesy of City Hall. And then there's always just not leaving your keys by the door. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The city is extending the deadline for property owners to declare whether their home is vacant or not. Now, that deadline was supposed to be today, but Mayor John Tory announced it's now being extended until the end of the month. Tory says so far about 84% of all households have made their declaration. If you do own an empty home, you will be taxed for it. City Council voted in December 2021 to create the tax on vacant properties. The goal was to put pressure on the owners to sell those empty homes or put them on the rental market. Homeowners who don't make a declaration could be fined $250. A state funeral will be held for former longtime Mississauga Mayor Hazel McCallion. McCallion died over the weekend at the age of 101. The province announcing today that McCallion will be honored with a state funeral on Tuesday, February 14th. It will begin at 11 a.m. at the Paramount Fine Food Centre in Mississauga. There will be space available for members of the public. McCallion will lie in repose at Mississauga City Hall on February 12th and the 13th. Flags will be flown at half-mast across the province on the day of her funeral. When Canada's premiers meet with the Prime Minister next week to talk healthcare funding, Ontario will be pointing to a number of examples of what it's already doing to improve the system. As Lorena Redekop shows us, the Health Minister today providing a peek into what our province's pitch for more funding will look like.
The health minister proudly showed off a new 52-page document, but it's mainly her ministry's version of a greatest hits album.
We need to be bold, innovative, and creative.
From last fall, pharmacists being able to prescribe some medications, in place as of January 1st. Expanding home care, a promise made before the last election under the previous minister.
Well, good morning, everyone.
Last month's plan to address the surgery backlog, including moving some procedures to private clinics. One new piece, a promise for better data reporting on healthcare, something the federal government is calling for from all provinces.
If they need the data to prove that the $14 billion that we've invested since 2018 is improving our system and making it better, we're all in.
This document is being released as the premiers are set to meet with the Prime Minister next week, trying to get more healthcare funding.
The message, I think, is saying, well, we are active. We're not doing nothing. We are highly involved in the health sector. But nonetheless, we probably need the help of the federal government.
She sees it as more of a pitch to the PM.
I've been more surprised not to see a pitch. And so the discussion will start next week. Every premier is gearing up for that. And so they have a strategy.
A few other new pieces, a number on health professionals to be trained, including an extra 1,500 nursing student spots and 150 for nurse practitioners.
Let me tell you, it's fantastic. This is critical, but if we don't retain them, it's all for naught. So retention is critical.
She's disappointed there's nothing new on keeping nurses from leaving. There's also an addition to palliative care, with 23 more hospice beds, plus $30 million for more primary care teams, like nurses, doctors, and social workers, to connect people to care. The opposition's take?
They lay out everything that they intend to do for the many, many years to come. So this is not a plan to meet the needs of Ontarians. This is a plan to convince the federal government that the health transfer to Ontario should be as big as it can be.
Late this afternoon, Premier Ford met with BC's Premier. Part of their discussion was set to touch on that federal health funding. Lorena Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. It's a historic change for Toronto's high schools. The TDSB has approved an mandatory English curriculum. As Patrick Swadden explains, students will focus on Indigenous voices and texts in grade 11.
It's taken 2 years, but Indigenous student trustee Isaiah Shafkat's work has finally paid off.
This is a really important change that is happening, including Indigenous perspectives and worldviews in a mainstream course.
The students spearheaded an effort to make an Indigenous-focused English course mandatory for grade 11 students. And last night, the Toronto District School Board voting overwhelmingly in favor of the proposal. The course is called Understanding Contemporary First Nation, Métis, and Inuit Voices.
It's part of truth and reconciliation. Indigenous resurgence is a key part of reconciliation, and when we share knowledge, we build interest.
TDSB Chair Rachel Chernos-Lynn saying students are still learning English, but through a different lens.
This will give students a sense of Indigenous voices, of Indigenous authors, of the Indigenous experience in Canada, which is part of our responsibility in fulfilling the calls to action in truth and reconciliation.
The course isn't new. It's currently taught in 29 of Toronto's schools, but this will make it mandatory for grade 11 in all TDSB secondary schools. Tanya Talega's work, Seven Fallen Feathers, has been taught in the course.
I think it's really important that Canadians, no matter how old they are, know the true history of this country.
And she's thrilled with some of the literature students could be exposed to.
The books of Lee Miracle are absolutely stunning. Celia's Song is an absolute classic. There are new writers too. Johnny Appleseed, the book by Joshua Whitehead. Joshua Whitehead is brilliant.
Chernos-Lynn says the course will be phased in gradually to make sure instructors are ready to teach it. As for Shafkat, this is an important step towards reconciliation.
Indigenous histories are often hidden, and being the largest school board in Canada and having this course mandatory, people will have to listen and they'll have to learn.
Patrick Swan, CBC News, Toronto.
The world's largest naturally frozen skating rink is set to have its latest opening ever. The Rideau Canal Skateway in Ottawa still hasn't opened this winter because the mild temperatures have resulted in poor ice-making conditions. The latest date it has ever opened was exactly 21 years ago, on February 2nd, 2002. The canal is not expected to open in time for the start of the city's annual Winterlude Festival, which begins this Saturday. And this is a live look of the Toronto skyline, mostly clear tonight with an extreme cold weather warning in place as temperatures plummet, currently feeling like -17 in the city. Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your extended forecast. And Colette, it will be a bitterly cold start to the day tomorrow, and that cold expected right through the night.
Yeah, it's really about a 36-hour period where we're dealing with these extreme conditions, dangerous conditions, because you can get hypothermia or even frostbite in a matter of minutes. So the extreme cold warning is in place because of this. Snow squall warnings, too, in some of those areas being impacted still. I know it was a wide area earlier, but still by the winds driving across Lake Huron, Georgian Bay as well. And then it's going to be like whiplash with the temperature turnaround here as we'll go into mild air as we head into Sunday and Monday and Tuesday especially, where the daytime high is going to be 6 or 7 degrees. All right, let's show you what's happening here in terms of those winds driving across the lakes. You can see how the squall's set up, and then as the winds change direction, it shifts where we're seeing these. Highly localized, but in those areas, reduced visibility will continue, plus heavier amounts of snowfall. And then at times, the flurries even trickle down to the north shore of Lake Erie and can even to the north shore of Lake Ontario. So flurries possible into Toronto tomorrow as well, even though we'll have otherwise mostly sunny skies with the cold air that's going to be in place. Looking ahead a little bit further, we're going to have a little bit more activity into Saturday, more cloud cover and flurries passing through, but winds change direction, and that's really going to help us get rid of the extreme cold. Snowfall potential in those banners, those squalls. The turquoise, you could see 10 centimeters, but locally there's areas there that could see certainly more than that. Watching those temperatures plummet through the overnight. We're going down in that range of -17 to -20, and they don't really rebound or respond very well tomorrow, even once the sun is up. So it's still going to be a really cold day, -15. And with the winds still feeling like -25 Friday during the day, but then check out the temperature Friday night into Saturday, even colder, but the winds will be slightly less. So it still puts us at a wind chill of about -30. And then we see these turnarounds and the much milder air bringing rain showers by Tuesday.
Thanks so much, Colette. Finally tonight, a new exhibit aims to bring the sights of Vatican City to our city. Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, the exhibition, officially opens to the public tomorrow in Toronto. Tally Ricci got an early tour and has more on how events like this are helping with tourism's recovery.
It's a chance to experience Michelangelo's masterpieces without boarding a plane.
We've got Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel, the exhibition, which is 33 life-size frescoes plus the Last Judgment. These are all the work that Michelangelo featured in the Sistine Chapel. We presented them instead of 60 feet up in the air. They're down for you to study up close, and you get to take as much time as you want, and you can take photos, something you can't do in the Vatican.
The exhibit has been touring the globe for more than a decade and is stopping in Toronto for the first time.
Anytime the world is inspired by art and reacting to art, we're in a better place. This exhibit is for everyone. It's for people who've been to the Sistine Chapel before. This is also for people who have never been there before. You're going to get the context of everyone that Michelangelo painted, and maybe you're going to be inspired to go see the real thing afterwards.
The first visitors to the exhibit seem inspired.
I think it's really cool how he spent so much time on these and they look really good.
You can tell there's a lot of work he put into the shadows, which is from his experience of sculpting and stuff.
Wow, really breathtaking.
Tourism experts say events like this are helping with the industry's ongoing recovery.
Well, any activities that happen in the winter is great for the city, both for locals and for visitors. It's always really encouraging to see people coming into the city, especially after the last 3 years. I think that vibrancy of having people get out and experience all there is to see and do in Toronto is welcoming.
It's just 12 months ago that we actually started 2022 with the Omicron variant, so this is a much better way to start the year. We're about 2/3 of the spending that we were at. We're obviously still a long way behind what we were at 2019 in spending and in numbers, but we're really hopeful that we're reducing the time for us to get back to those pre-pandemic levels.
As more people embrace becoming tourists in their own city again.
I've been to the Sistine Chapel. That was the last trip I took before COVID, and I sat in the chapel for 5 hours. And we don't have a trip to Italy planned anytime soon, so I thought I'd bring the kids here.
Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel will be running here at the Toronto Event Centre until April 2nd. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone, and stay safe out there.